Hey, it's your favorite makeup loving mommy, and I'm Biggie back with another video. Long time no see. Yes, I know, but that's a conversation for another day. Today, I'll be continuing my Declutter series, and today we'll be working on eyeshadow palettes. If you see any eyeshadow palettes that you would like a video on, please leave them in the comment section down below. I'm not gonna ramble on for too long. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and let's get straight into the video. Alrighty, so how I'm gonna do this is I'm gonna go brand by brand and go through every single palette and decide whether I am or I'm not going to be keeping things. The first brand up is Beauty Bay, and I can tell you right now, I'm not getting rid of anything. But I am gonna show you all my palettes, so yeah, let's get into it. So this is the Beauty Bay Techno Days palette, and this is what it looks like. I'm gonna try not to blind you guys with the mirror because baby, but this is what it looks like. Let's see, can I get you guys a better view? Okay, there we go. This is what it looks like. I was in love with these colors, so I needed the palette. I can't wait to use it. Then I have my Beauty Bay Pastels palette. This is what it looks like. This is literally a pastels palette. I got it because who wouldn't love to have a transition shade for every single look that they have? You know, some palettes don't have the perfect transition shades, and pastels make amazing transition shades. So yeah, that's staying. Then I have the Beauty Bay Berries palette. I do have a look up on my channel with this palette. This is what it looks like. I'm not gonna lie to you, I was obsessed with this palette. If you know me, my favorite color is pink, and this palette was right up my alley, literally right up my alley. Then I have the Beauty Bay Bright palette. This is the 16 color palette. This is what it looks like. I think this palette is so pretty, and honestly, I would have loved to get the 42 pan palette, but my collection is literally composed of nothing but rainbow palettes, so the 16 palette was the go-to for me. Next up, I have the Nudes palette. This palette also has a 42 pan palette, but I just felt like 42 shades was too much, so I got the 16, which was literally perfect. The next palette is the Beauty Bay Fiery palette. These are literally neutral shades. These are warm neutrals. And like I said, they had the 42 pan, but I really did not need that many shadows because you guys saw my collection. It's rather large, okay? It's staying. Now we're starting to get into more of the discontinued palettes. So this is the Love Notes palette. I believe this was a limited edition palette for, I'm gonna say it was either 2020 or 2021. This was their Valentine's Day limited edition palette. I think this palette is so pretty, but it's not as melanin friendly as I would like it to be. I definitely like my shades to go a little darker, but it can work. I think I could get some really, really nice looks out of this palette. Then I have the Sunset Horizons palette, and y'all, who told me to get this palette? Who told me to get this palette? Because look at it. This color story does not speak to me. I feel like I can literally think of maybe 1, 2, possibly 3 looks with this palette, and I don't know. The collector in me, that's what it was. The collector in me needed this palette, but I didn't need this palette. It's still staying though. Next up we have the Wilderness palette. This was what the Earthy palette was inspired by, and you can't tell me that this palette is not gorgeous. Look at these shades. They are literally amazing. I told you guys I love me a bright color, but these grungy shadows, these grungy tones are doing it for me recently. This is the Me, Myself, and Mama Mitchell eyeshadow palette. It's the pressed pigment palette, my apologies. And this is what it looks like. I'm gonna take the mirror out. This is what it looks like. This palette is literally amazing. The concept was amazing, and then look, the mirror literally is magnetic and sticks in. Oh, I loved it. Now this palette, this is the Nikki Tutorials and Beauty Bay collab. This, oh, there we go. This is what this palette looks like. I don't know if it's the fact that I loved her so much, or love, I don't know why I said that in past tense, that I love her so much, but like this palette is something I had to have in my collection. There are a few shades in here that I truly like I love how true this red is, and I love this shade over here. I can't see what the name is, but I think that shade is absolutely gorgeous, and Pride is gorgeous as well. Pride is so pretty. It's not coming up as a pink on camera, but it's definitely this beautiful shifting shade. It's amazing, and of course it's staying because I love Nikki. Next up we have the Jade palette. This is the collab between Jade and Beauty Bay. I really liked this palette. I thought that it was so colorful without being a rainbow palette, and I wanted it. And then I saw that they had a PR package that had specific shades for specific zodiac signs, and I want to do a look based off of the shades that my zodiac sign said, but I cannot find a picture or any description of what the zodiac sign colors were for my zodiac sign. Next up we have the Brights 2.0, and I told you guys I didn't get the 42 pan for the Brights palette, the regular Brights palette. Well, for the Brights 2.0 I got the 42 pan. Like, who could turn down this palette? Like, especially with all these colors, I'm loving it. I can't wait to play with this. We are down to our last two Beauty Bay palettes, and I have videos on both of these, and they are going to be linked in the description box down below, so be sure to check them out. This is the Earthy palette, and this is what it looks like. Let me tell you something. Beauty Bay's formula is literally iconic, okay? I think these are amazing, and these grungy colors were absolutely doing it for me. I don't know, it's something about these greens that did it for me. I mean, the browns and the reds were extra for me in this palette, but the greens, it was a hit for me. It was a hit for me. Next is the Midnight palette, which is a blue purple palette, and I absolutely loved this palette. I wouldn't be able to tell you why I love this palette, but I'm not gonna lie to you, blues and purples look extremely good on me. Just something about this palette, it was A1 for me. It was chef's kiss for me. So of course it'll be staying. Now I'm going on to Karity. So I know I didn't do that great with decluttering with Beauty Bay, but I'd like you guys to know I'm getting rid of my Karity palettes, both of them. I have the Karity matte palette, which looks like this, and then I also have the Karity Picante palette, which looks like this. I got this palette in Boxy Charm, and it is literally the perfect fall palette, and fall is here, guys. But I have palettes that are better quality. Not saying that this is bad quality, but better quality and the same colors. So I'm going to be getting rid of these two palettes. So 2 down. My next batch of palettes are Juvia's Place, and as you can see, it is a very tall batch of palettes. I hate to tell you guys this, but I'm not getting rid of any of my Juvia's Place. So I am gonna show you guys it because I love me some Juvia's Place. First up, we have the Rebel Army palette. Then we have the Rebel Mint palette. Next up, we have the Rebel Gray palette. Then I have the Rebel Honey palette. Following that, I have the Nomads palette and the Zulu palette. This palette was literally my introduction to color when it came to makeup. This palette literally has a special place in my heart. Then I have the Warrior palette. Then I have the Warriors 2 palette. Then we have the Warriors 3 palette. Then we have the Tribe palette. And then I have the Festival by Juvia's Place. Then we have the Dupes palette. Then I have the Garden of Juvia. This is one of the more recent palettes. I think this was the last palette that was released, and it is a pastel palette. Then this is the palette they released right before that, which is the Nubian Earth palette. Beautiful neutral colors. Then we have the Nubian, which is the OG neutral palette at Juvia's. Then I have the Nubian 3 Coral. The Afrique palette. Then we have the Saharan palette. Then I have the Saharan 2 palette. Here is the Nubian 2 palette. Then we have the Masquerade mini palette and the Wahala palette. This is the Wahala 2 palette. And then we have the Culture palette, which I have a video up on my channel with this palette. This is what it looks like. Before I get into my 6-pan palettes, let's get this one out the way. I also have the Magic palette by Juvia's, and this is not the mini. This is the big pan one, the full size one. They don't make this size anymore if I'm not mistaken, but I still have mine, so yeah. I have the Sweet Pinks. I have the Mauves. Ooh. I have the Berries. I have the Violets. I'm not gonna say much about these palettes. I'm really just going to show them and move on. I have the Nudes. I have the Taupes. Because if I talk about every palette, we'll be here forever. I have the Chocolates. Ohema uses this actually as a contour palette, which I think is literally so great that it's multi-purpose. I have the Allure 2 palette. I mean the Allure 1 palette. Then here's the Allure 2 palette. So icy and blue. The Allure 3 palette. I Love Ice. The original I Love palette. Super unique color story. The Blushed Rose palette. The Bronze Rustic palette. The Nubian Royal palette. Uh-oh. The Nubian Glow palette. Uh-oh. The Yami Angelina and Juvias Place collabs, the La Mariposa. Listen, I'm sorry if I said that wrong, but I think this color story is literally beautiful. And this is the Vanessa and Juvias Place collab. Let me tell you something. I was trying to get this palette when it first dropped, and I kept missing the restocks, and then they completely discontinued it, and then they brought it back and I missed the restock, and then they discontinued it, and then they brought it back and I had finally got it. I was so happy. And then this is the last 6-pan palette. This is the Fumi and Juvias Place The Queen palette. This is, I believe, a face palette or a multi-purpose palette, whatever you want to call it. And this is what it looks like. So that is all of my Juvias Place. Yeah, I know I'm doing kind of bad here, but I got another one that all are going. So these are my Wet n Wild palettes. This is the Rose in the Air palette, which is a dupe for the Modern Renaissance palette by ABH, and it's gonna go. This is the Comfort Zone palette, and I believe this is another dupe for another ABH palette, but I can't remember which one, but this one's gonna go as well. And then this is the Not a Basic Peach palette, which I believe is a dupe for an Urban Decay palette, and this one's gonna go as well. Truth be told, I had planned to do the comparison videos and never got around to it, so yeah, I'm just gonna let these go. I am going to be doing Ace Boutique now, and a lot of these palettes I got from BoxyCharm, whether it was in my box or I purchased it from their Charmer store. This is the Grandiose palette. This one I know I got in my actual box, and I'm not gonna lie to you, the only color I've been obsessed with was this one. I'm not gonna say lie, I actually did like this color as well, but I think I used this maybe 1 to 2 times tops. This color really did it for me, and yeah, I loved it. But I am going to get rid of this palette. Then I have this collection here, which is the Paradise Fallen palette, the Blossom Passion palette, the Slice of Paradise palette, and the Classic Paradise palette, or Classic Gold Paradise palette. I'm not gonna take these out of the box. It's just way too much to do that, but I will pop a picture of what these palettes look like on the screen. And these 4 palettes are also going to be decluttered. Now I have my final 3 Ace Beauty or Ace Boutique palettes, and this is the Flare palette. I think this is literally fall in a palette. I'm keeping it. And then I have the Nostalgia palette, and this palette is legit spring in a palette. And then I have the Ocean palette, the Oceanic palette. Look at the blues and greens. I think this palette is so pretty, and unfortunately this is the older formula, but I heard it works just as well as the new formula, so I'm gonna stick beside it. All right, it's staying. Next up on my brand list is the P. Louise palettes that I have, and I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I have a little bit of an obsession with P. Louise, whether it comes to their bases, their paints, or their palettes. I love P. Louise. Yeah, I'm keeping these. I'll show you them though. So this is the Stack 'em Up collection. I have all 3 palettes. And this is the Talk is Cheap palette, which is the blue palette. These rich blues are amazing. So I'm trying not to blind you guys. Then we have the CEO palette, which is the purples palette. This rich purple is beautiful. And then we have the Shmoney Cones palette, or Shmoney Tones, my apologies, Shmoney Tones palette, which is a pink palette. And you know your girl love her some pink. I love me some pink, so yeah. Then we're gonna get on to our bigger palettes. One thing about P. Louise, she gonna give you a big bulky palette, but it's literally gonna be beautiful. So this is the Watch the Queen Conquer palette, and the cool thing about this palette is it has 2 sides. So this is side 1, then you open and it's a chess and checkers board, and then this is side 2. Ooh. Perfect for fall and beautiful pigmentation, so yeah, it stays. Then we have then we have the If the Crown Fits palette, which when you open it, this is what it looks like. And this palette also has a drawer that you can pull out. And there are more shadows, which looks like this. Uh-oh, can't see what I'm doing. Then comes my P. Louise Secret Center palette. Let me tell you something, this was part of my first P. Louise purchase, and I could not afford this palette when it first came out. And I waited and waited and waited until I could afford it. Even though it was out of style by then, I still wanted this palette and I got it. I love this palette. It holds a special place in my heart. I mean, all my palettes hold a special place in my heart, but like some palettes are actually sentimental to me. This is my Worldly palette. This was one of my push presents to myself for when I gave birth. And this is what it looks like. I think this palette is beautiful. The color story says it all. It's amazing. And then the packaging, I don't know if you guys can see it, but the sand, the pink sand, oh, it's amazing. And then this is the All I See Is Signs, or All I See Is Dollar Signs palette. I think this palette is super, super cute. I'm not gonna lie, they have a few more palettes out that I kind of want, but I haven't gotten or haven't even thought about getting. So they have some more smaller palettes, and then they also have, I believe, an all greens palette, a pinks palette, a big pinks palette, and a big greens palette. They have smaller palettes like these that are like orange and all these other colors. So yeah, my daughter's calling me. I'll be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. So the next brand we'll be getting into is BH Cosmetics. This is the Trendy in Tokyo palette. I'm not gonna lie to you, I think this palette is beautiful, but realistically I don't need it, and somebody else could get good use out of this. I have these colors 10 times over, and it's time that I pass it along. Next up is the Color Festival palette, and crazy part is I wanted this palette so bad, and I think the most I've done is swatch this palette. So I'm not gonna hold on to it any longer. I'm gonna get rid of it. And then following the color festival is the Midnight Festival, and I'm gonna keep this. Oh, look at the packaging. Do you see how cool that is? Yes, I'm going to keep this palette. These glitters over here and this like corner over here is really everything that I could ask for. So yes, I will be keeping this palette. Then I have two BH Cosmetics palettes. Wow, not two BH, two Take Me Back to Brazil palettes, right? So essentially, let's see. This is the original palette that I had, and I loved it. It was super vibrant and amazing. But as you can see, I've hit pan in some 6 shades, and this one cracked. So I thought, why not replace this palette? And I bought this one thinking, oh, I can give away or toss the other one. Wrong. This palette is not the same as this palette. This palette is super vibrant, super colorful, super pigmented, and this palette is more of a pastel type of palette. I am going to keep this palette and this palette, but yeah, that was that. And then these palettes were in my kit for so long, and it's finally time to get rid of them. So this is the BH Studio Ultimate Artistry palette. I'm not gonna lie to you, these bad boys are hard to open. This shade literally comes out every time I open this palette. This is what this palette looks like. And then we have the Ultimate Neutrals eyeshadow palette, which looks like this. This palette reminds me of the Morphe 35O palette, I think it is. And then we have the Ultimate Mattes palette, which looks like this. Next up is my Makeup Revolution London palettes, and I have 2 palettes from the Tammy and Revolution collab. I believe these are 2 separate collabs, but this is the first collab, which is the Tropical Carnival eyeshadow palette collab. I still have the plastic on this, so it may be a little harder to see. But yeah, that's what it looks like. And then their second collab together is the Tropical Twilight palette, and that is what this one looks like. Of course, I'm keeping both just to support the creator. And then I also have 2 palettes from the Patricia Bright collab with Makeup Revolution, and this is the Rich in Life palette, which is her more neutral colored palette. And then this one is the Rich in Color palette, which is her rainbow colorful type of palette. Keeping both of those as well. Jumping into some major makeup must-haves, I have the Carnival palettes. I have the 2, 3, and 4, and honestly, I think I'm gonna get the 5 as well. I do know that it is a remake, but I think I'm gonna get it anyway. I did not get the 1 because this is the XL Pro, which is literally just a bigger version of the first one, so yeah. But this is the second one, which is the XL Pro. This lovely rainbow palette, guys. I love it. And the color, the pigmentation, amazing. And then we have the 3, Carnival 3 Love Tahiti palette. Another rainbow palette, but tell me this palette does not scream tropical to you. She hit the nail on the head with this one. And then we have the 1 palette that is truly a change of pace, which is the Carnival 4 Antidote palette, which is the perfect fall palette. Like, look how pretty this palette is. They are all staying, so yeah. Following the Be Perfect Carnival palettes is going to be the Profusion Cosmetics palettes I have, and this is the Matte 10 Pan palette. I literally love this palette. I use it on my clients, I use it on myself, and literally I can make magic with this palette. But it is time I get rid of it. I no longer need it. I have these colors 10 times over in other palettes, and I have these colors 10 times over with better formulas, so I am going to get rid of this palette. Then I have my Profusion Spectrum palette, which is a rainbow palette, and of course you guys have seen my palette collection is literally full of rainbows, and this is not one of the higher qualities. It is a good quality of eyeshadow, but I have better, so I am going to declutter this as well. And then I have my Mirage palette, which I keep saying I'm gonna use. I'm like 3-4 declutters in and I still haven't used it yet. I was initially going to keep this palette, but I think I'm just gonna get rid of it because at this point, if I haven't used it, I'm not gonna use it. So yeah, I'm gonna declutter this palette. Here are 3 palettes that I got off of Amazon. These are supposed to be dupes for the Norvina collection volume 1, 2, and 3. I planned on doing a dupe video and I just never got around to it. So it's really no point in me holding on to these palettes. So I am going to declutter them, but this is what they look like. This is, I believe, the dupe for volume 3. This is the dupe for volume 2. And then this is the dupe for volume 1, and they're all gonna go. Let's get back on a good foot with some of the things that I love. These are my Pat McGrath palettes. These are the only 2 Pat McGrath palettes I have, and when Auntie Pat puts something on sale, you buy it. I refuse to pay $125 right now for a palette, so yeah, these palettes were not that and they were on sale. So this is the Mothership Mega Celestial Divinity palette. This is what this looks like. I think that this palette is beautiful. Not to mention the formula is amazing, especially on some of these shimmer shadows. Beautiful. And then this is the Mothership Mega Celestial Odyssey palette. And just look at it. Oh, of course, you know, these 2 are staying. They're not going anywhere. And I honestly hope to expand my Pat McGrath collection, but I don't want to get sucked in and end up buying a whole bunch of $125 palettes. So, I don't know. Here we have my mini Colourpop palettes, and yeah, some of these are gonna go. My mom dropped one of my drawers when I was moving into the basement room, and some of the shadows are missing, and the perfectionist in me just has to get rid of those palettes. So yeah, let's run through these and see what we're keeping and what's going. So this is the Colourpop and Karity collab. It's missing a shade, but I'm not gonna lie to you, I was not that big of a fan of this color story to begin with, so it's gonna go. Then we have the Colourpop Soul palette. As you can see, this shade is literally shattered, and I love this shade. This shade is completely gone, but I'm gonna get rid of this palette as well. It's not something that I need or want. And then this is the Colourpop Marp palette. I'm not gonna lie to you, I thought this palette was so cute when I first saw it, and then I got it and was so uninspired. So yeah, it's gonna go. This is It's My Pleasure palette. Not a fan. I don't know. I like rich black. I like rich black. I like rich purple colors. So yeah, this can go. Now this is my favorite blues palette, well, outside of the Midnight, because the Midnight by Beauty Bay gives this a run for its money. But I think that this palette is so beautiful. This blue, that blue, and then I believe this shimmer. In love. I could literally die for this palette. It's staying. And then this is my Just My Luck palette. I wanted this palette so bad. This was one of the original palettes that I wanted from Colourpop, and I couldn't get it because they discontinued it and they brought it back, and then I got it and now I don't want it. So it's gonna go. This is my Honey palette. I think this palette is beautiful. It's literally just a yellows palette. I love me a yellow, so it's staying. And then here's the Aren't You Glad palette. As you can see, it's missing a shade. I really like this pressed glitter, but you will see that I have a Z palette or a magnetic palette with all glitters, so this palette can go. It's going. Now I have my Baby Got Peach palette by Colourpop, and missing a whole shade, and this whole shade fell out. Oh, it's going. Even though that pressed glitter was really pretty. This is my Strawberry Shake palette, and I'm missing 1, 2, 3 too many colors, so yeah, it's just gonna go. And then this is the other palette that I initially wanted from Colourpop that I finally got, and now that it's here, it's missing colors, it's cracked, and I could do without it. I have better pink palettes at this point in my makeup game, so it can go. Last but not least, out of my 9pan Colourpop palettes is the Main Squeeze palette, and I really did get this palette for this shade over here. I believe it was this shade. It was either this shade or the shade that was here. I saw somebody on TikTok use it, and I was in love with the color, and I got it, and now I don't need it, so it's gonna go. Moving on to my bigger Colourpop palettes. Not the big ones, just the bigger ones. Here is the Sweet Talk palette. I have a tutorial on this palette on my channel. I will link it in the description box, but this is what the palette looks like. Some way, somehow, I am missing this color. Don't know what happened to it, but I am gonna keep this palette. I like it a lot. Then I have my California Love palette, and I'm not gonna lie, all I could think of was Tupac's song California Love. But yeah, not my cup of tea. I wish it was a little deeper. I wish it went deeper, so I am gonna get rid of it. Then I have the Yes Please palette. I've used this all of 2-3 times, and I just feel like I could do without it, so I am going to give it up. This is the Give It To Me Straight palette. I actually bought this off of Poshmark from another YouTuber, and I loved it at the time. The collector in me really wanted it, but it screams boring. I'm gonna get rid of it. This is my magnetic palette of glitters. As you can see how pretty that is. I am not a fan of pressed glitters, but I realized how much I could do with a pressed glitter when I took my makeup certification class. So yeah, it's staying. This is my Through My Eyes palette by I Love Sarai and Colourpop, and the girlies love this palette. It just so happened that I am not one of the girlies, so I am going to get rid of it. I thought I could make it work, but it's not my cup of tea. Now this is another rainbow palette. It is the She Is a Rainbow palette, and I think this palette is literally beautiful. The row of pastels, and then you have all these bright colors, 2, 3, 4 pressed glitters. I think that this palette literally is perfection, so it will be staying in my collection. Then I have the So Jaded palette, which was the Kathleen Lights and Colourpop collab. I love this pressed glitter here, and I do think that this pressed glitter is really pretty, but overall I do not need this palette. I did like this navy blue, but I don't need it. It can go, so I'm gonna let it go. these are my Neewer palettes. So yeah, this is the Matte About Hue palette. It is a colorful palette, definitely staying. I love me some color. Then this is the Rock Candy palette. Not gonna lie to you, now that I look at it, I'm not that inspired by this palette, but I really do think that I could get some major use out of this palette, so it will be staying in my collection. Now we have, now we have the Bare Necessities palette. I remember when this first came out, I wanted it so badly, and I finally have it. I think that this is literally a neutral girl's love. Like, too bad I'm not that big of a neutral girl, but yeah, I'm definitely keeping it. And then to continue with the neutral colors, we have matte gone matte, and this is an all matte neutral palette, and I'm keeping this because I'm keeping the Bare Necessities palette, and I just think that this goes hand in hand with it, so it's staying. You guys can literally not see the top of this palette pile, and yeah, this is my Morphe palette pile. I don't think I'm gonna get rid of much from here. I do know there are a few palettes that I want to get rid of from this pile, but yeah, let's just jump right on in. So I do have the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe Vault, which is the Dark Magic, Bling Boss, Ring the Alarm, and Armed and Gorgeous palettes. Let's just check these out. So this is Dark Magic. I really think that this is so pretty. And then I have the Bling Boss palette. I tried this palette, was not that big of a fan of it, could have done without it, but yeah, I'm gonna keep it. I have the Ring the Alarm palette. This is what this looks like. Gonna keep it. And then I have the Armed and Gorgeous palette, which is what this looks like, and they are literally all staying because the collector in me cannot get rid of one without getting rid of them all, or keep one without keeping them all, so yeah. Next up we have the Morphe and Jaclyn Hill collab, the Divine Neutrals palette. I recently used this palette on my mom, and I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I was not a fan. But I feel like I want to still test it out on myself because I might have been trying it on somebody else and not liking it, but it might do what it needs to do for me. So yeah, I'm going to give it another shot. Then I have this year's Pride palette. I have the NQ and the NM, and then I have the NQ. I have the 9Q and the 9N palettes, which this one is the Love Matters palette, which looks like this. I think this palette is literally beautiful. It's literally the rainbow. It has every single primary color, and it's staying. And then I have the 9N, which is Love Shines, and this is what it looks like. I don't know who told them to come out with an all shimmer palette, but I guess this can go hand in hand with the other palette. I just wish they made it one big palette instead of making it two separate palettes, but yeah, life goes on. It's staying. Then I have the Morphe 15D Day Slayer palette. I believe I got this in my Boxy Charm. This is what this looks like. I think that this is a really pretty neutrals palette, so it is staying. And then I have the Morphe Manny MUA Glam palette. I am a big Manny MUA fan. I literally watch almost every video he posts, if not every video, and it's not going anyway. It's not going anyway. It's not going anywhere. Then I have the Morphe and Sour Patch Kids collection collab. So yes, this is what it looks like. I think that these colors are phenomenal, and it will be staying. I told y'all I have a bunch of rainbow palettes. This is the Morphe and Madison Beard collab, the Channel Surfacing Artistry palette. I really did get this palette because it is said to be a dupe for the Makeup Mario palette. I believe it's his first palette, so of course it's staying. Uh-oh. Then I have the Maddie Ziegler Imagination palette. Let me tell y'all something. It took me so long to get this palette, and now that I have it, I'm super uninspired, but I think it's really pretty. Maybe it's just these three colors here that I think are pretty, but I'm gonna keep it. Then I have the second Pride collab, which is, I believe this is the 2021 collab, Pride collab. I'm keeping it. It's a rainbow palette. Does that need any more explanation? It's staying. And then I have the first one, which is the 2020. I believe it's the 2020. It might be a different year, but let me tell you something. I missed the drop for this palette. They discontinued it. They brought it back. I missed the drop twice again, and then they discontinued it, and then they brought it back, and I finally was able to get it. I'm content. It's staying. This is the Morphe and Avani Greg palette for the beds. Can't get it open. There we go. So this is what the palette looks like. I think that this palette is really, really pretty. Hold on. Yeah, there we go. I think this palette is really, really pretty. The top is eyeshadows, and then these little pans down here are supposed to be water activated liners. I don't know. I heard that these activated liners are a bit tricky, so we'll see. It's staying. Now we're getting on to some older palettes. This is the Morphe 35H palette, Hot Topic palette. Oh, there we go. And literally all I've done was swatch this, and the only two colors that I'm really attracted to are this one and that one. So I'm not going to hold on to this. I am going to declutter this palette. Next up, we have the 35M, which is the Boss Moods palette. And I received this palette initially as a gift, but the black was broken. And then I ended up going and buying it and replacing it myself. I think this is an amazing falls palette, but it's really not something I'm gonna use. I don't feel like I should keep it because at this point it's just taking up space, and I don't think I'll be using it anytime soon, if ever, so it's gonna go. Now listen, if Lisa Frank isn't nostalgic for you, you're too young for me, okay? This is the 35B palette, which is the Morphe and Lisa Frank collab, and also the 35B remake. This is a 35B remake because this is not the original 35B palette. It originally looked completely different, but this is what it looks like now, and I'm in love, so it's staying. Guys, we're almost at the end of my Morphe collection. We almost there. This is the Morphe 35S Sweet Oasis palette. I'm not gonna lie to you. The blues and the pinks speak to me, but I am so uninspired. I don't know what to do. And I really, really, really want to give this a chance. So I am going to keep this palette for now. But I don't know. It's not looking good. Now this is the Morphe and Nikita Dragon collab. I think that this palette is so pretty. I'm not really that inspired when looking at it, but it's legit pretty to look at. Especially like, look at the cover. This is so creative. I think this is amazing. So this is definitely staying in my collection. And then I have both of the Jaclyn Hill palettes. This is the first one. And this is what this looks like. I'm keeping it, and the reason I'm keeping it is because the collector in me needs to have both. I'm definitely keeping this one. This one is more of my alley, a very colorful palette. Love to see it. This red here is beautiful, and so is that pink down there called Tipsy Girl, and the yellow No Joke. It's giving, so yeah, it's staying. And then here is the Fierce by Nature 3503 palette. Now, when I was younger and Morphe was first becoming popping because of the 35O palettes, I wanted one so bad, and I just could not get one, whether it was because I couldn't buy it myself or whatever, but I could not get it. And now that I am able to have the 3503, I love it to look at. There are a few colors that I really do like in this palette, but it gives fall, and I'm gonna see what I can create with it because baby, it's pretty. Now we have the 34G Grand Glam palette, and this is supposed to be a face and eye palette. Not gonna lie to you, this can be used by somebody else. I don't use it. I have other things to use for face and eyes, or face or eyes, so I am going to let go of this palette. This is my Morphe and James Charles palette. Yeah, I said it. I know he's canceled, but separating the makeup from the, separating the makeup from the artist. This is literally an amazing palette to keep in your kit. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I think I am gonna place this in my kit. I'm not 100% sure, but as of right now, it's staying. Then I have the 39S Such a Gem palette. This is a purples palette, and I already have a look in mind with this palette. When will I get to it? I have no clue, but I'm definitely keeping this palette. We near the end, y'all. Two left. This is the 39A palette, Dare to, what? I think it's Dare to Create. There we go. 39A Dare to Create palette. I'm keeping it. I remember I wanted this palette for so long, and I just did not get it. And then when I finally got it, I had so many other palettes that I wanted to get into that I didn't touch it. And I think it's time I touched it. So it's staying. And then this is my 39L Hit the Lights palette. Morphe did a collab with 4 artists, or 4 influencers. And this is what they came out with. Each influencer had a different section of the palette, and I think that this is a really pretty palette. I already have a video up using this palette, but I do want to use it again and again and again, so yes, it's staying. Next up, we're going to be looking at my Natasha Denona palettes, and of course none of these palettes are going anywhere. I have the Natasha Denona Mini Nude palette, and this is what it looks like. I think that this palette is literally so pretty, and it is staying in my collection. Great for travel, great for travel. And then this is the Mini Biba palette. This is another one that I think is literally phenomenal and is staying in the collection. And then I have the Cupid palette. I think that this is actually a really nice palette for Valentine's Day, so of course it is staying in my collection. Alright, so I am going to just pull out a few random palettes really quickly just to kind of get them out of my way. So yeah, this is the Bad Habit Inferno palette. I believe that this palette is supposed to be a dupe for a Urban Decay palette, and although this palette is super pretty, I just don't need it anymore, and it's gonna go. Then I have the Mellow Cosmetics Sinopia palette. This is what it looks like. I did create a look with this palette, and I do want to recreate it. I just don't plan on recreating it with this palette, so it can go. Then I have my Violet Voss, my Violet Voss Holy Grail palette. This is what the palette looks like. So yeah, it's going. And then last, oh well, not last but not least, but next I have my Boxy Charm palette. This is what the palette looked like. I'm not gonna lie to you, it feels like they kind of just threw shades in here, but some of these shades are really, really pretty. I don't know if you guys see the difference in colors with some of these, but yeah, I'm gonna keep it for now. Next up, I have the Collidos Cosmetics Nude Beach Eyeshadow Palette. I got this in my master makeup kit when I took my certification class to be a makeup artist, and this is, I believe, the only what's the word? Why can't I think of it? I believe this is the only cool tone palette I have anymore, so I am going to keep it. And then I have the Trendy Beauty Boss Babe palette, and I just do not need this palette. It's going to be decluttered. Now that those are out of the way, I am going to pull out some Beauty Creations palettes. So the first palette I'm going to show you is the Dare to Be Bright palette. This is a all pink palette. Hopefully I can show it to you without the glare because it still has the protective shield on it. But this is what it looks like, and it is staying. And then this is the Innette 69 and Beauty Creations collab. And this palette is actually staying as well. I also got this palette in my master makeup kit when I took my certification class, and I was very impressed with these shadows, so I will be keeping it. I have a ton of e.l.f. mini shadow quads, and they're all staying. Next up, we have another little random palette. This is from Storybook Cosmetics. I'm not sure. I think this is a Fairy Tale palette. I think that's what it's called. And this is what the palette looks like. I think that this palette is so pretty, but it serves me no use at this point in the game. So I am going to declutter this palette. I literally have almost every Collidos palette there is, except I think the last two that they made, or maybe the last one they made, and then the fourth one. They discontinued the fourth one, and I still want to go get the one that came out however long ago. But this is my Collidos collection. This is the Futurism 1 Sci-Fi Green palette. I think that their shadows are so pretty and so pigmented. This is the Futurism 2 Cyber Bronze palette. And this is the Futurism 3 Astro Pink palette. That was my elbow rubbing against this. I have a plastic shield over my white desk, but yeah, this is the Futurism 5, which is the Electro Turquoise palette. This is the Futurism 6, which is the Lunar Lavender palette. Come on. Trying not to blind you guys, I'm so sorry. And then this is the Futurism 7, the Sashimi City palette. What's going on here? Okay, there we go. I think that this is literally so pretty for an everyday palette. Yeah, but that's all of those. Alright, so I do have some made by Mitchell palettes. Of course, they are in their little cases, so let's take them out. guess we'll start with this one. So this is the Made by Mitchell Feet on the Ground palette. This is what this looks like. Gonna keep that. Then I have the Head in the Clouds palette. A beautiful, colorful palette without being a rainbow palette. It's staying. And then I have the Do You Want Milk palette. And I think that these, like the bottom colors, the bottom, not 2 rows, but the one above it and the one above the last row and the one above that are gorgeous. Those rows, wow, I'm not even in a camera frame. Those rows are literally so pretty. And I can't wait to dive into this palette. Alrighty, so the next brand we have is Anastasia Beverly Hills, and as you can see, my collection is a little big, not that big, but a little big. So let's go ahead and get into it. So this is the Riviera palette, and this is what it looks like. None of these palettes are going anywhere. This is the Carly Bible palette. I feel like this palette isn't as melanin friendly, but I think I can make it work. Or maybe I can put it in my kit. Maybe. This is the Subculture palette. There was a lot of controversy behind this palette, but I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I liked this palette when I used it. I don't know. I really did. I think that it was a pretty good palette. This is the Alyssa Edwards palette. Uh-oh. There we go. I love me a rainbow palette, guys. I love me a bright colored palette. Auntie Jackie did it for the team here, okay? This palette is literally, let's get closer. Everything that I could have asked for. I love this palette and I am so elated to have it, okay? And then this is the Amrezy palette. I think this palette is super pretty, from like packaging all the way to the shades. And yes, my mirror came broken. Wait, no. I don't think this mirror came broken. I think that somebody dropped this palette and this mirror broke. But yeah, this is that. And then I have one of their vaults, which has Modern Renaissance in it. Let's see, can I get this out? Yes. Modern Renaissance. This is what she looks like. And then we have Soft Glam, which is literally the perfect soft glam palette. They literally named this palette the complete right way. That's what that looks like. And then we are moving into our ABH Norvina collection palettes. Yes, I have every single one. Don't judge me. Don't judge me. So this is volume 1. This is volume 2. This is volume 3. This is volume 4. This is volume 5. And this is volume 6. I truly like this one, but you know, I love all my palettes. And that is all my ABH collection. Now I'm gonna move into my Nabla palettes. I have a few of her pressed glitter palettes. So this is the Miami Lights glitter palette. I feel like with the packaging it's very hard to see. the Ruby Lights glitter palette. These are so gorgeous. And then the Glorious Lights glitter palette. Then I have two Cutie palettes, which is the, I'm gonna say is Analog palette. And the Wild Berry palette. Uh-oh. Yeah, these are all stained. Now I'm gonna move into two kind of random palettes I have again. So this is the Too Faced Palm Spring Dreams palette. So this is what this looks like. I think that this color story is literally so pretty, but I don't think I will ever use it. And honestly, I was going to keep it, but like the color story is just not for me. And although I don't have any Too Faced eyeshadow palettes, I am going to declutter this palette. Then I have the Festival Pure palette, and I think that this palette is so pretty. And I don't know, it's the pink. I think this pink and this glitter, pressed glitter, is beautiful to me. I think that this brown is really I think this brown is a really nice brown, but I'm gonna let it go. So yeah, these are my Colored Rain palettes. This is my Juicy Boost palette, and this is the one I have. You know, it came in two styles, so this is the one I have. That's one page, and then that's the second. Of course, I am keeping this palette. It is meant to be in my collection. And then I have the Vivid Pigments and Shadows palette. I told y'all, I don't have nothing but rainbow palettes. Don't get me wrong, I have a few neutral palettes, but rainbow palettes is where it's at for me. So this will be staying in my collection. And then I have the Queen of Hearts palette. And I don't know, I'm not a fan of it, but I heard amazing things about it. Oh my gosh, it's not, yeah, because of the lights. I'm gonna keep it. Now we're on to the crayon case palettes that I have. So this palette is the box of crayons, and y'all know they had a whole discontinuing thing going on, and I was not going to be able to get it, but somehow I managed to get my hands on the box of crayon palette, and yeah, I'm keeping it. Now we have the MacBook palette, the MacBook palette, and this is what it looks like. A rainbow palette. Yeah, another one. I hear you judging me, and you're not even here to judge me. Yes. Yeah. And then I have the Big Box of Crayons palette, which is another rainbows palette. But this shade right here, oh my gosh, I'm so in love with that shade. I think that shade is so pretty. And I think it's a pressed glitter. It is. It's a pressed glitter. I don't know. I think that shade is literally the bee's knees. So, yeah. So, here we are at my Glam Light collection. Let me tell you one thing. One thing for sure, Glam Light is going to eat that packaging up every time. They're going to eat that packaging up every time. For every single collection, they're going to eat that packaging up, okay? So these are my Icy palettes. This is what they look like. This is the Blue Raspberry palette. And this is the Cherry palette. Before I continue, let me tell y'all, I'm not getting rid of any of my Glam Light. None of it is going anywhere, so yeah. Then I have both of the Big Michaela palettes. So this is the first Michaela collab, and this is what it looks like. I think that this palette is so cute, and I have used it. I did not have a problem with it. So yeah, it's staying. And then this is the second collab that they had together. And I don't know, these grungy colors are phenomenal in my eyes. Like, they're literally so pretty. It's this side over here. It's listen, if you get it, you get it. Okay, this palette is staying. I feel like I just dug my nail into one of them shades. I did. I scratched the mint green. Ugh. Now I have my ice cream palette, which is a pastels palette, and believe it or not, I literally still have the packaging for this palette. It's like this cute little ice cream truck box. It's literally the cutest little thing. So yeah, this is staying. And then, see, look, this is what I mean when I say they eat their packaging up. This is the oven, right? And this is the cake. I think that this palette is so pretty. I think the packaging, I think the thorough thinking through that they do when it comes to their packaging and their concepts is amazing. So yeah, it's staying. And then last but not least, I have the paint palettes. I have the first one, which is the bigger one, and then I have the second one. So this is the first one, and then this is the second one. So yeah, these are all staying. So this is my Lunar Beauty Pal. I told you guys when I was going through Morphe that I love Mini MUA, and yeah, this is proof, okay? So this is the Life's a Drag palette. This is what it looks like. You know, you got your neutrals over here, your colors over here, and then your shimmers in the middle. I think that this palette is so pretty, and I will be keeping it. Now, why am I keeping this palette when I'm going to be keeping this one, which is literally the same exact palette with more shades? I don't know. I have a problem. Maybe I'll put that one in my kit and keep this one for myself. But same concept. You have your colors on this side, your neutrals on this side, and then your shimmers in the middle. And this is the Life's a Drag Facelift palette. I will be keeping it. So this is the last palette that he released, which is the Nude Prism palette, and I love this neutrals palette. And his formula is literally gold, okay? Gold. So I will be keeping this palette as well. And then my last Lunar Beauty palette is my Strawberry Dreams palette. And of course, I think that I'm only in love with this palette for these last three shades and this one up here. Oh, you can't even see. But yeah, these last three shades and this one up here. But it's staying anyway. So yeah. Yeah. All right, this is the last pile, and I'm only putting all of this into one pile because your girl is tired. So I have two palettes from Dominique Cosmetics. This is the Celestial Thunder palette. This is the mini one. If I'm not mistaken, this is limited edition to BoxyCharm only, and I will not be giving up this palette. Then this is the Transition palette, and I got this one off of BoxyCharm as well. I think this palette could be really useful for my kit, so I'm definitely going to keep this palette. Now we're on to Beau Live Beauty by Melissa, I believe it is. This is her Nude Persuasion palette, and this is what it looks like. Let me tell you something. The makeup girlies loved this palette, so I had to have it, and yeah, it's staying. This is my Tati Beauty Textured Volume 1 palette. This is what it looks like. I don't know. I had a literal obsession with this palette before I got it. And now that I got it, I am in love. I can't wait to show you guys what I come up with it. So, yeah. Now, if you know, you know. This is the Beats by Deb's Cosmetics palette. I love Deb. I don't know. It's just everything that she stands for is amazing to me. So this is her Color for Days palette. This is literally the perfect rainbows palette. And then we have the In the Buff palette, which is her nudes palette, and I was considering making these two palettes my permanent client palettes, but like I want to be able to use them for me. I want to hold them hostage for me, so you know, that's that. And now we're on to Blend Bunny. So I don't know, Blend Bunny got really popular out of nowhere really fast, and I don't know if I was just missing out or if they blew up overnight. But yeah, I have almost all of their palettes. I think I only don't have one palette. So this is the Primal palette by Blend Bunny, which is their most recent palette that came out, I believe. And then this is their Blends palette. Literally, they're all rainbow palettes, but different forms of rainbow palettes. Yes, I'm crazy for getting them all, but I wanted them all. And then this is the Surge palette. I'm absolutely in love with this neon row, and I have such big plans for that row. I can't wait. Now we're gonna go on to the Makeup by Yolanda palettes. So this is the Jamrock palette by Makeup by Yolanda. This one came with a broken black, and it's literally just a rainbow palette, and unfortunately I am gonna get rid of this because I don't even think about this palette. It doesn't cross my mind at all, so I am going to declutter. Now I have the Makeup by Yolanda and Melissa, which is Beat by Melissa collab, and I am in love with the differentiation between colors and neutrals in this palette, and of course I wanted to support the creator, so I am keeping this palette. And I just went on a rampage about Deb, so y'all know I'm keeping the Beat Down palette, which is the Playing in Makeup by Yolanda and Beats by Deb collab. I think that this palette is pretty. It's super bright. It has the white, the black, the brown to, you know, spruce things up, make them a little more neutral, darker or lighter. So yeah, this is staying in my collection. And then last but not least, the final palette, I believe, in all of this is my Glow Up Academy Varsity palette, which is Kiki Adams palette. This is Kiki Adams brand. This is her palette from her brand. I have seen her use this palette so many times on her channel, and I just felt like I wanted to support, and I also wanted to test it out, so I bought it. Yes, the mirror came cracked. This is the mirror that actually came broken, but the palette is intact, so I'm not complaining. And yeah, that is all. That was an extremely long video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and double tap that bell so that you're notified every time I upload. I hope you guys left some comments of the palettes you would like to see a video on. Can't wait to get into those. I think that's it. I will see you in the next one, guys. Bye.
Got the remedy for your soul. Got the melody for the low. I got everything, let me know. I like your energy, baby.